In this video, I'm going to show you how you can make your own custom sets of 11 rack rigs to use the load all rigs from computer option with, just like I do whenever I make my 11 rack rig. So if we pop into a rig pack here, pop in here, there's our XML file, which we'll go into here in a minute. I'll show you how you can make custom sets by swapping out rigs and then editing the XML so we get rid of any of the rigs that we don't need. As you can see, there's 58 items in this folder. So there's actually 57 rigs in here instead of the 104 that we have spaces for here in our user settings. All right. Now in previous videos, we've already gone over how to load rigs from computer one by one, how to load all rigs from computer, how to save rigs to the computer one by one, or save all rigs to computer, and of course, save to the 11 rack. You should already know how to do that. We've also already gone over how to use the XML file. So I'm going to assume you already have something to edit your XML with. We're going to use Visual Studio Code, but you can use Dreamweaver. You can even use Notepad if you want. It's just a little bit easier to use something like a code editor. We also saw how to download rigs, which we did from 11rackpresets.com. We downloaded a couple rigs there. Of course, I showed you how to download rigs from my own blog site, which we also did. So in this video, I'm just going to show you how we can make our own custom sets, sort of. So you may download a bunch of 11 rack rigs and load them into your 11 rack, of course, into the user settings. And then, of course, you'll keep the ones you want and you can delete the ones you don't. You may download something like all of my rigs and use that XML file and use the load all rigs from computer option and go through and then pick out some that you really like. And then, of course, you may make your own rig. So let's go ahead and make our own rig here. We'll just go here to C, right here. Let's come in here and just change some stuff around. Like we're really making up an all new 11 rack rig here. There we go. And we'll say that is our new 11 rack rig. Of course, we'll save it to the 11 rack first. We'll call it new rig 4 and save it. Okay, very, very cool there. So, of course, we've already downloaded some rigs that we like. And we'll say we want to have all of these rigs here that we downloaded. And then we want to have this new rig that we just created. And then maybe we head over to the 11 rack and create a rig. Now here we are in front of the Avid 11 rack. So we'll just assume we have made or are making some rigs here on the 11 rack itself. So let's just change the amp over here, change the cab, change our mic. Maybe change the effect. And whether that, of course, is on or off, we'll just leave it on. All right, so we made our changes. Go back. Of course, you should know how to save. We know we need to save here. So we'll click save, and we'll give this a different name real quick here. And then we'll save it. Okay, so now, of course, just assume that you have made several 11 rack rigs from the 11 rack interface, and of course made some from your 11 rack editor, and then of course some that you have downloaded, tested out, tried on your 11 rack. Okay, here we are back at the computer. We already have our 11 rack standalone editor open. We don't need Pro Tools for this as long as you have the 11 rack standalone editor. You can do the same thing in the integrated editor if you have Pro Tools 10 or below. So we'll go here, and there is that rig that we created on the 11 rack. We want that one loaded up into our custom dump or into our custom rig pack, just like I have my rig packs here that I make. And we want to do this. We want to create this because maybe you want to have a whole rig pack for 1 gig and a whole rig pack for another gig, or for a recording session, or whatever the case may be. And you want to have all your rigs sort of structured out from A to however many rigs you happen to have, but you also don't want to carry around all 104 rigs. So I'm going to show you how we can go in there to that XML file, which we already looked at previously, and how we can prune out those entries that we don't need. And then we'll actually delete some files from the folder. I'm not going to go over all this stuff in here. We're just going to keep this as quick as possible. So let's go ahead and get started. We have downloaded the rigs that we want to put on our 11 rack. And we have also made a couple of rigs. We made a rig here on the 11 rack editor. We made a rig from the 11 rack, and that's saved on the 11 rack. So we have some options here. What we're going to do is load these rigs onto the 11 rack first, and then create a dump. Now, of course, you could do this manually as I showed in the XML video, but I like this way a little bit better. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a single folder to house all the rigs that I want to load onto my 11 rack first. So we'll go ahead and do that now. You can create this anywhere you want. It's really just a dummy folder. And you can name it if you want. I'll just call it rigs for 11R. Very good. And I want this rig on there. I want this rig on there. Again, the rigs that we downloaded. Okay, let me open this up here, just so I can pop into here. And we'll say, we've gone through some of the rigs I made, but we don't want all of them. Okay, maybe we want this rig over there. And by the way, let me actually Control Z that, because we're on the same drive. What I'm going to suggest you do, instead of just dragging it over with the left mouse button, hold down the right mouse button, drag it over, and then release, and then choose copy here, because we don't want to move our rigs, out of its containing folder, because we may want to come back later and, for example, something like this here that has an XML file, we may want to come back later and use this XML file to load all these rigs. And if I just grab this and threw it over here, well, now that rig no longer exists over here. Control Z. So I'll copy it over here. Let's copy it over here, because all we're doing is making a list of rigs that we want to put on our 11 rack first. So that's what we're doing right here. Let's copy this over here. Very good. And I think you get the idea, but I'll just go through a few more here. We'll just grab this one, say we want this one. Copy here. Okay, very good. We'll pop in here. And let's just copy one over here too. All right, that's good. So just imagine we have a much longer rig list than this as well. Or maybe this is all the rigs that you want. Now, what about the rig we created on the 11 rack that exists only on the 11 rack? We don't have it backed up anywhere. Well, we could leave it on here and just sort of move it around. We could use save to 11 rack and just move it to whatever position we want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually save this to the computer here. All right, just so I can put it in my folder. We'll just save it in here first. And there's our top dog rig. Now in this case, I'm just going to throw it right in there. So we have our downloaded rigs in here. We have some rigs that we made in here. We also have another rig in here, the new rig 4. We didn't save that one yet. So let's save that to the computer as well. Put it in downloads, just save it. And right here it is. And we'll throw it over here. Okay. So we have all of our rigs in one location. Now, as I showed in the XML video, we can actually pop into an XML file that already exists and sort of just edit it. But the way I would prefer to do this is actually to load everything up first. So I'm going to start here on A1. We're going to go to load from computer, because we're going to create one single dump file. So that way we can easily load up all the rigs we want for our gig, our recording session, whatever the case may be. So let's pop into this folder here, which is rigs for 11R. And we'll just start at the top. We'll say this is where we want A to be placed. Now remember, we have to save. If we use load from computer, we have to save. So save that to the 11 rack. Okay. Now I'll go to the next one. You actually don't have to go to the next bank. I just like to do that. You can always choose what bank you want it saved to whenever you click the save command here. You can choose it right here. All right, but I would just like to do it this way just so I don't get confused or miss anything. So I'll go through the rest of these rigs here, load all of these onto my 11 rack and save them, and then we'll create that dump file. Okay, now we have gone through all of these rigs in this folder here that we pulled our rigs over into, so we knew what rigs we wanted to load onto our 11 rack. Again, maybe these are rigs we downloaded, we sort of already sifted through, and now we've just pruned out the ones that we want to have loaded on our 11 rack in our own custom set. So we can use that load all rigs from computer command, and we don't have to load them up one by one every time we want to use this set. Again, this is a great way to create sets for gigs, for recording sessions, whatever the case may be. All right, so we have all of those loaded onto the 11 rack. Again, this is the way I like to do it, just because you are less apt to make mistakes and have to go on and correct them in the XML if you let the 11 rack create the XML for you. All right, so as you can see, they are all on there, all the way down to C1 of our user banks. Everything else is going to stay on there. Okay, so now what do we do? Now what we need to do is save this whole set of rigs that we just loaded onto the 11 rack and save them. We need to save all of these to the computer, and we want the XML file. So we'll use save all rigs to computer. I'm just going to put this in the downloads folder for now. Again, don't save to your downloads folder. Save it, somewhere else. We'll call this my custom set. Of course, you might name this, gig 1, gig 2, or recording session at, whatever. All right, my custom set, maybe my metal set, whatever the case may be, we'll save that. That's going to dump all the 11 rack rigs, all 104 from our user banks onto our computer. Now, of course, we don't need all 104 rigs. We only need the, 9 rigs we put on there. But imagine having 20 rigs, 30 rigs, something like that. This really, really comes in handy. Okay, so what we're going to do now is navigate to that. So here's my custom set. As you can see, it threw all of the other rigs in there as well. We don't need these reprisal rigs. We don't need these war rigs. Okay, and that's going to take up space. It might get a little bit confusing. We don't need, let's find our XML file. We don't need all of those instructions listed in our XML file either. These rig files are already very small, so it's not really adding that much, to the storage space. But what it can do is it might get a little bit confusing. Okay, so we want to cut down on the confusion. So now, just for an example, I'm going to do load all rigs from computer, and we're going to load up, let's just say, let me hop in here actually. And what do you say we load up, say, some of these dread rigs here, just so we can see that this does indeed work. So let's go ahead and let this finish up here. Okay, so now all of our dread rigs are now on the 11 rack. I just wanted to do that to clear out everything that was already on there, just to show you that this does indeed work. So now, since we already saved that again before we did that load all rigs from computer, because if you did that load all rigs from computer without saving first, now you've lost your rigs that were saved on there just the way you want. That's why we always save everything, a full dump, with that XML file. All right, so now what do you say we head into this XML file right here? I'm going to open this with code. All right, now here we are in the XML file, and of course you should remember what rigs we had all the way down to C1 right here. Now all these we don't need, and we don't need the instruction set in here either. So what do you say we prune these out? Now this is very important. You don't want to prune out anything that you need. As I explained in the XML video, we have this opening tag, this closes here, but then we have opening tag here, the patch list. We don't want to get rid of anything down here, right here. We don't want to get rid of end patch list or end 11, but we can get rid of everything else that we don't need, okay? So we only need down to C1, which was our top dog rig. We don't need any of these in here. So what we'll do to prune these out is we'll just grab it right here. And again, after you can see the opening patch and then C1, and then the file is top dog, and that ends the file, and then that ends the patch. That closes this code block off here, and then it goes to the next one. So we don't need the instructions for C2. So we'll just start here at this patch, at the opening tag, and just drag all the way down to the bottom, but not all the way down to the bottom, just right here. So that closing patch tag right there for the Z4. And then you can just hit backspace or delete. I'll just hit delete. There we go. All of that is gone. Now hit backspace just to clean that up a little bit. Okay. So that is how our file is going to look now. Very good. So we'll go ahead and save this. We'll hit save. Now we're good. We should be done with code. We can close it down. Now I'm going to change the name of this. We can change the name anytime we want. And I'm going to call this is 9 rigs, my custom set. Again, you'd have a better name for that. I just put 9 on there just so it hops up to the top of the list here. Now, we still have the problem of all of these rigs here that we don't need. So what do you do? If you don't need them, just get rid of them. Of course, you want to make sure you remember what rigs that you actually need. So if you don't know, you can always pop back into your XML file. Of course, the names are probably going to be more descriptive, or you'll be more familiar with them, on your own there. Okay, so let me open this up here just to make sure. All right. Pop back into the folder, and then you can go ahead and start deleting rigs. So what we need is this hate rig right here, but we don't need these because we don't have any other hate rigs that we need to load up. So we'll get rid of all those. Don't need this one here. Just hit delete. That gets rid of it. This here is called Top Dog 1 because we already had Top Dog on the 11 rack. So I just named it Top Dog 1. The one we need is called Top Dog. That's what it's named in here. Of course, we already went over that in the XML video. So we can get rid of this. We don't have any war rigs at all. So why have them in our folder? Get rid of all those. We don't need the reprisal rigs or this one. We can get rid of that. We don't need this one. Delete that. We need new rig 4, I know. We don't need this one or 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 this one. We can get rid of that. Let's see, don't need that one or this one. Get rid of that. Okay, now we are down. We have pruned out our list. So now we just have the rigs in here that we need, all 9 rigs. And there are 10 things in this folder. Again, you have to keep the XML file and all your rigs that are needed within the same folder. So there we go. Now we're done. Now we have pruned down the XML file and we have pruned down the actual rig files that are in the folder. So we don't have all of these rig files that we don't need, which can get a little bit confusing, especially whenever you're sharing your rigs. You know, when I share rigs, sometimes there might be 20 rigs or 30 rigs. I don't need to give you all, you know, the rest of the rigs that just happen to be on my 11 rack. It takes up space and it gets confusing. You don't need that. So there we go. Now we have made a custom set. And now what you would do if you're going to share this, I mean, more than likely anyway, if you're going to upload it, you would create a compressed zipped folder, and then you could just drop this in there. And of course, you know, give it a name and then upload it wherever you want. People could download it, unzip it. You know, that's how I always do it. So we are done with this. Very good. We have made our own custom set. Of course, you would want to back this up online. You would also want to back it up to some other hard drive, not to your OS hard drive, not to your downloads folder. I save all of my 11 rack rigs within their own folder, and all of them are together. Okay. So just keep that in mind as well. But now we have to make sure this works, right? We just minimize that. So again, we have all of the dread rigs on here right now, as you can see, and we're only going to be loading rigs all the way down to C1. So everything past C1 will not be affected. And because we got rid of all of those other rigs that were saved along with it, the war rigs, the reprisal rigs and whatnot, you know, it keeps our file size smaller. It's less confusing, so on and so forth. So now to load all of our rigs, our custom set, we'll just go load all rigs from computer, navigate to where they are located. And right here, my custom set, we grab that XML file, which we named 9 rigs, and then my custom set. So this may be my metal set, my, you know, set for whatever recording session or gig you happen to have. It's the XML document, hit open. It's going to go pretty quick because it only has to find 9 rigs now. There we go. So go back to user, and there we go. A, B, down to C1, and nothing else was affected. All right, so this is a great way to save custom sets of your own rigs. You know, if you're downloading a lot of rigs, you know, from the web, from me, from 11 rack, the 11 rack presets website, and you go through a lot of them, especially if you use my rigs, where you are, you know, I provide so many rigs, you know, 104, 798, you know, there's no way you're going to need all of these. So you go through, you find the ones you like, and then you can kind of just prune out the rigs that you need from there. And like we did, we put all the rigs that we wanted within one file. We didn't move them from the original file. We just copied them over. So we knew exactly what we wanted, you know. And of course, if, you know, you download a rig of mine or something, or anyone's, and you want to, maybe you want to make changes to it, right? And then maybe even give it a different name and then save that out. And then of course, move that into your folder. That's something that you want to reload and make your own custom set with that XML file. So this is a great way, pretty quick and easy way. I know this video is kind of long, but I wanted to make sure I went through every detail, but really it only takes maybe 5 minutes to set all of this up and then to load everything on and then to save everything to the computer, hop into your XML file, edit it really quickly, get rid of all those rigs that you don't need, and then load it right back up. And then you'll have it forever and ever. You can share it. You can carry it around with you, upload it online somewhere, you know, back it up online as well to Google Drive or OneDrive or whatever. And then you'll always have all of your rigs, our custom set here. You'll always have all of your rigs with just your custom set, just your rigs, plus that XML file. So you don't have to sit there during your recording session or during your gig or whatever the case may be and say, okay, guys, well, let me load up all my rigs for this gig here. And then the next night you have to load up all new rigs one by one by one. Don't do that. Save all your rigs to a custom set with the XML file. You know, prune it down so you're not getting confused. All right. Have your XML file. Again, everything has to be within the same folder as your XML file. And then you can easily just use that load all rigs from computer, and you have all the rigs that you need for that recording session, for that gig, whatever you happen to be doing. You have them all loaded within a matter of seconds. All right, so that is how you can create your own custom 11 rack rig sets with the XML file, how to edit the XML file, how to get rid of the rigs, make sure you only have the rigs in there that you need. That is how you can create your own custom sets to save out and then edit and create your own custom sets for your 11 rack. And then you can use that load all rigs from computer command, and you can be up and running with all of the rigs that you need loaded up very, very quickly onto your 11 rack. So that is how you can create your own custom rig sets for your Avid 11 rack.